à tous et à toutes.
Good morning, everyone. I am now calling this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 137 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Industry and Technology. Before we begin, I would like to ask all members and other in-person participants to consult the cards on the table for guidelines to prevent audio feedback accidents for the health of everyone, including our interpreters, pursuant to the motion adopted on Thursday, September 19, 2024. We are pleased to welcome the Honourable François-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, to discuss his mandate. Welcome, Minister. Happy to see you. And with him today, we have from the Department of Industry, François Bilodeau, acting deputy, Mr. Bilodeau. Thank you, Minister. And Mary Gregory, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Benoit Tessier, Director General, Industry Sector. And according to our procedure, we have 5 minutes, but we will be generous if you wish to go a little bit over, and then we'll go on to questions. Over to you, Minister. Chair, thank you very much. Thank you for welcoming me here, and thank you to my colleagues and dear members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. As always, it's an honor to be invited to address you today when the work of this committee is shaping and making an important contribution to Canada's industrial and technological future. Today, I'm eager to share with you the progress we've been making on the many mandate letter items tasked to me by the Prime Minister. In 2021, you may recall when he asked me to serve as Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. It was a great honor, but it would also be a great challenge when our economy was in transformation. I thanked him, and I knew that we could seize opportunities for our generation to ensure to have an economy without carbon. This has led us to develop innovative innovation to go from concept to application. We are working on a system to make Canada a leader in seizing the opportunities that are generational in the 21st century economy. I was going to say, and I always say, and I repeat, we have a talent needed to succeed in the 21st century. We have the aerospace industry, bioenergy. We have the technology for batteries for the 21st century, and we also have much renewable energy, and we also have access to most of the major world markets, some 5 billion consumers across the planet. So we are in a very advantageous position, and I know that Canada has accelerated its investments, historic investments, for example, Dow Chemical in Fort Saskatchewan in Alberta, also Volkswagen in St. Thomas, and Honda, which announced its biggest private investment in the history of Canada, $19 billion. And so we are very much aware that the Canadian economic benefits from Canada's rich diversity of talents to ensure our long-term prosperity. That's why, as you see, we have invested more than any government in various research initiatives and science initiatives. For example, we also have more than 1,000 new Canada research chairs. This will give better support to researchers. We also have developed national strategies that are bearing fruit today with regard to artificial intelligence. With life sciences, and this has allowed us to position Canada amongst the leaders in technology in the world. These strategies will allow us to inform our collective decisions as a society, and this will allow us to make scientific progress in new strategic areas while maximizing the economic effects across the country. These efforts are at the heart of a cleaner and greener economy, and we also know that in this area, transportation will be a major challenge. That's why we're making more effort to ensure the green transition towards the electrical vehicles and increased support for electric vehicles. As you know, Bloomberg said that Canada is at the first place in countries on the world EV supply chain. And this has allowed us in 2023 to ensure more than $40 billion in investments in electric vehicles, the vehicles of tomorrow. And that means, Chair, that we can ensure prosperity and work for hundreds of thousands of workers in the automobile industry for the future. And I'd also like to draw the committee's attention to the progress we've made in modernizing these various frameworks, for example, with regard to initiatives with regard to foreign investment. This is an important aspect, and I thank the committee for their work in this regard. And I think competition, and I think Canadians will see that Canadians, thanks to the committee, his work will help to make Canada more competitive, and also with regard to the protection of private information and technology. We also have the Investment Canada Act to ensure that we will be able to ensure national security. An objective you share. We will encourage Canadian businesses to invest abroad, and also foreign companies to invest in Canada. And we will act more quickly and more decisively when there are investments that could threaten national security. As you know, economic security and national security are the same thing. And there are major changes to the Competition Act, which will put an end to anti-competitive mergers and collaborations that raise prices and limit choices for Canadian consumers. And I thank the committee for its work in this regard. And this is something that our citizens will remember for a long time, because if there is less concentration, there will be more competition and lower prices for for Canadians. And I think that this is an area that's a priority for Canada and for making the Canadian economy competitive. Finally, we are strengthening our privacy legislation through our the Digital Charter Implementation Act, and this measure is meant to protect personal information with regard to the digital sphere and create a new risk-based framework for artificial intelligence systems in Canada. You know that artificial is an important area, and we've discussed that with President Macron recently, and there is also a major summit in Canada in that regard, because Canada is a leader in responsible intelligence, artificial intelligence. The real value of these investments is to improve the lives of Canadians, and this is why we want to ensure that workers in the auto industry, for example, my colleague Mr. Massey is very interested, and with regard to Saskatchewan, where they will be able to use artificial intelligence to improve their farming and reduce water use. And in Quebec, there will be new therapies to protect the people and improve the quality of life of our seniors. So this is the way towards the future in a world which continues to grow. Our team will continue to contribute, and we thank the committee for its contribution in ensuring assistance for Canadian research. I am convinced that we will be able to meet the challenge of the 21st century, and Canada will maintain its leadership role. And this is in large part thanks to the excellent work and expertise of our workers. And I would like to thank you, Chair, for giving me this time before the committee. And I'm looking forward to answering questions from my colleagues and to be with you for the next few minutes. Thank you very much, Minister. And to begin, I will give the floor to Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Minister, for coming. Always a pleasure to have you here. It'll be a lot easier today. I know how enthusiastic you are, but if you can actually try and answer our questions, it would be more helpful for everyone, including the translators. Telsat, which you know is a company that is majority owned by U.S. investors, that your Liberal government has spent over $5 billion on since 2019 to try and connect rural and remote Canadians to the internet with lower Earth satellites. Only one small problem. It doesn't have a satellite network that connects anyone to the internet. And in 2021, 6 months after you became minister, you gave $1.4 billion of taxpayer money to Telesat, a large portion of which was a loan. A very big loan. how much of that loan has been paid back? Just the number, please.
Mr. Chair, I'm very proud of the work of Telesat and the workers at Telesat, I must say. Telesat is a Canadian company. We're proud of what they're doing, and I can assure you that the investments, because I would say, Mr. Perkins, just to be clear, we're making money out of these loans. We have a return on the investments that we have invested.
Minister, I have limited time. With respect, Minister,
Mr. Chair, if you want me to answer or not, I don't know.
Well, you haven't answered. I asked one simple question, not an explanation of what Telesat does. I asked a question. That question is quite simple. Simple answer. How much of the $1.4 billion investment and loan, which was the loan was almost $800 million part of it, has been paid back since 2021?
Mr. Chair, let's be clear. It's
Just
your
the
privilege,
number or
Mr.
the percentage. You
it's your
can do either
privilege,
one.
Mr. Perkins, to ask the question. It's my privilege to answer.
I would like you to.
So my answer to you is say, I am proud of what Telesat is doing. I'm proud of the loan that we have granted them to have a large constellation, about 198 satellites, that will offer coverage to Canadians, importantly for our national.
Minister,
Sir, if you're going to interrupt me every time I'm trying to answer your question, it's not going to go well today for you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Perkins, Minister, please try to be succinct in your answers to and to the point, Mr. Perkins.
I will come to your latest announcement. I asked about the $1.4 billion. So the answer obviously is zero has been paid back. You also have, at that time in 2021, had $650 million allocated for equity as well as for warrants. How much have you spent in warrants on that 2021 option right now on taxpayer money?
Listen, I'm happy to get back to you with the specific, but what I think Canadians are concerned about is to make sure that we would have, for national security reason, a very broad coverage when it comes to telecom in the Arctic. I can tell you the network, the LEO satellite, the low orbit satellite that are going to be put in orbit by Telesat, is going to be key in NORAD modernization and for NATO allies to protect the Arctic and the North. And I would say, Mr. Perkins, using the federal government balance sheet in order to support Canadian companies is a smart way to do things, because in this case, in the loan we have provided, we're actually making money. We're making money because we borrow at a lower rate, then we lend the money, and therefore Canadians will be making money while protecting national security and ensuring that there would be coverage in the North and the Arctic.
Let's talk about the $2.1 billion loan that you just announced on September 13th, a 15-year loan. A 15-year loan that gives interest relief, essentially, no interest payments for the first 5 years. At the rate that you set in the contract of 4.7% plus the overnight repo rate, that's about a 10% interest rate at current rates. That's over $1 billion of interest in the first 5 years that you're forgiving to Telesat. And you said you'll get goods in kind. What goods in kind are you getting for $1 billion?
We're getting a satellite coverage to protect our national security, sir. And I would say we're making money. That's why I think Canadians pay. There's a lot of people watching at home.
You're not making money if you're forgiving the interest.
Mr. Perkins,
you're
please
making a statement. I'm telling you facts. That's the difference between you and I.
I read the loan agreement. I don't know if you did. It's for the loan agreement has interest release for the first 5 years.
Sir.
There is no
if
interest being paid.
And I lend
you can't
10,
make money.
I'm making money.
You can't make money if you're not collecting the interest.
Mr. Perkins, please, we can't have, just for the interpreters, it doesn't work if I have the both of you speaking at the same time. So, Mr. Perkins, I'll let you go with your question, and then please let the minister answer.
When you relieve the interest for 5 years and they don't have to pay it, how are you making money?
Sir, I'm borrowing at the lower rate that I'm lending. I'm getting warrant, and I'm getting a network coverage for telecom in this country to protect our national security. Anyone who's done Math 101, if you borrow at a lower rate and you lend at a higher rate, you just don't take it from me, sir. No, but hold on. Do you want me to answer?
First 5 years. That's borrowing at an government interest rate, and then it's costing you money. And in terms of warrants, how much are you going to spend on warrants buying? What warrants are, for people watching, is the right to buy equity to bail out the company with their lack of cash flow. How much are you going to spend on those warrants to bail this company out, which after this loan will have $5.1 billion of debt on a market capitalization of $900 million?
So what's your question again?
My question is, how are you saying you're going to make money when you're giving the interest away for nothing?
So for Canadians watching at home, it's very simple. I borrow at 2, I lend at 10. You don't need to take
you're
it
not
from me.
collecting it.
Well, sir, do you want me to answer? If you want to make statements, I'm happy to
You're not
listen to
listening.
you.
Yes, Mr. Perkins, please let the minister answer, and then that'll be all the time you had for your questions. So, Mr. Champagne, Minister, you have about 25 seconds to answer.
Okay, so what I was saying to Canadians.
Mr. Perkins, please.
Okay, so for Canadians watching at home, I borrow at a lower rate and I'm lending at a higher rate. I'm making, Mr. Chair, I don't know how you want.
No.
I'm happy to listen to him. I like his statements.
Yes, Mr. Perkins, you know the rules of this committee. If you don't have the mic, you're not to be speaking over someone else, over a witness that we've invited. You've asked your question. I'm giving the minister time to answer. So please.
I've asked the question 3 times, Mr. Chair, and he's not answered it. He's giving me an answer that's not related to the question. The question is, in the first 5 years of the loan, you are giving interest relief. No interest has to be paid in the first 5 years. How are you making money when you say there's no interest being paid? That's part of the contract. I don't think you've read the contract, since it says there is goods in kind, no interest charged in the first 5 years of a $2 billion loan. That's equivalent of $1 billion of interest relief to this company.
Okay, now, Mr. Perkins, you've had more than your time. I'd appreciate if you let the minister answer. I don't want any interruption. Mr. Champagne.
So, Mr. Chair, I appreciate. So for folks who watch at home, it's very simple. You borrow at a lower rate, you lend at a higher rate. You make the difference in between. And in addition to that, we're getting warrants, which is basically subscription rights to make sure that the Canadians would benefit from the plus value that we've created. And in addition to that, we are building a network of satellite to make sure that people would have telecom coverage in the north. That's going to help for our security, for national security. It's going to help for transmission of data when it comes to the Northern Passage for maritime operation and also for aviation. And we're going to be building, I think Mr. Perkins should celebrate, honestly, because we're going to be the largest factory in the world, Mr. Perkins, the largest factory of the world of its kind is going to be in Canada to produce satellite. We're going to produce 2 satellites a day in Canada. You should be proud of what we're doing for Canadians, because this is Canada leading in the 21st century. Not only will have protecting our national security, we smartly use our balance sheet to support Canadian workers, but in addition to that, we're going to be building 2 satellites a day. You should be celebrating, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. MP Gahir, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for appearing before the committee. I apologize. Usually at this committee, we let the witnesses answer the questions. I think it's a little bit early, so we haven't had our morning coffee. I wanted to talk
I'm sorry,
about...
Mr. Gahir, there was a point of order by Mr.
Sure.
Perkins.
That Liberal member doesn't speak for me, so he doesn't get to apologize for anything for me.
That's not a point of order, that's a comment, but I'll say I appreciate that you actually asked to speak and didn't interrupt while another member or a participant was speaking. So I'll take that as a positive. I'll take that as a positive. MP Gahir, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Minister, I wanted to ask about the global auto market. We know that this market is rapidly changing towards electrification, and we know that the federal government is positioning Canada to be a leader in that space. Ontario, the province that I'm from, has traditionally accounted for 90 to 95% of the Canadian automotive market, the manufacturing GDP, but we know that every corner of this country has something to offer the Canadian EV ecosystem. And thinking particularly of your home province in Quebec, in this instance, can you highlight how the federal government is attracting EV-related investments to Quebec?
Well, I'm very pleased that you're asking the question because Canada is really, when I started as Minister of Industry, a number of commentators would say that this was the beginning of the end of the auto sector because, we're living in a world where we have a shift, a generation shift. We've been doing cars in the same way for 100 years, and now we're planning for the next 100 years. There's 2 ways to look at that. We could have looked down or roll up our sleeves. What we did is to roll up our sleeves, and we've been able to attract, generational investment. Even investment in Mr. Perkins' province, in Nova Scotia with Michelin, which has been making record investments. So your point is that now the auto sector is spread across Canada. So Michelin and Nova Scotia are now also part of the larger automotive industry. In Quebec, what we have achieved is that we made Quebec enter into the automotive industry. We landed some of the largest investment from Ford and GM. And what they're doing, which is called the cathode active material, is not only going to serve the plants in Canada, but the plants in the United States. So you're putting Quebec at the center of this new value chain that you have in North America. We also got Nordvolt to decide to invest, and the vision of Nordvolt was to do the greenest battery in the world. And obviously, they chose a jurisdiction which had a lot of renewable energy, close to 100%. And I would say that Canadians should be proud. The workers that are watching and our friends of Unifor and others, if you look at what we've achieved, look at that. You know, the largest gigafactory of Volkswagen outside of Germany is going to be in Canada. The largest investment in Honda history, 75 years of history. The largest investment that they're doing is in Canada, $19 billion of capital expenditure. This is a watershed moment for Canada. You're looking at companies like Stellantis, and we're going to be there next week. Stellantis, which has mostly completed its plant in Windsor. Windsor is never going to look the same, and Mr. Massey can testify about that. You know, it's not only an industry; it's the rebirth of a city. It's giving hope. It's about opportunities, about possibilities. It's about Canada winning in the 21st century. I mean, think about that. Bloomberg, not me, Bloomberg said that Canada is leading ahead of China in the battery ecosystem for the next 30 years. I think as Canadians, we should celebrate. That's why I was saying to Mr. Perkins and others, let's celebrate Canada. Let's talk about possibilities. We are winning on the world stage. 5 years ago, no one was talking about Canada in the electric vehicle world. And now you go to Seoul, you go to Tokyo, they're talking about Bécancour, they're talking about Windsor, they're talking about St. Thomas, they're talking about Kingston. So honestly, I think that what we have achieved is seizing generational opportunities. And those who are winning are families. Those who are winning are workers. Those who are winning are rural communities, which will see a brighter future for them.
That's amazing, and I've actually spoken to some of those families in Windsor, and it's really been a revitalization of that entire city. When we look at some of the world-class investment in the EV sphere that the government's been able to attract, as you mentioned, in St. Thomas or Windsor or Brampton or Nepean, we begin to understand why Bloomberg has recently cited Canada as the premier sort of global destination for attracting FDI in the EV space. In your opinion, can you talk about the competitive advantages that Canada has that make it so attractive as an investment market?
The people. It's all about people. I remember in my first, in one of my discussions with one of the CEO of the automotive industry, I said, obviously as a lawyer, I already had the answer to my question, and it would serve a lot of people well if they follow that. But what I was asking to him, I was saying, what are the plants which are the most productive in the world? And obviously the Canadian plants are the most productive. So our people, our workers are the best in the world. It starts with talent. When you have talent, everything is possible. So that's why in every announcement that I did with the Prime Minister, the first thing I always thank the workers for their excellence, for the expertise, and for their dedication, because only when you have a talented workforce that you can attract generational investments. Because, you know, it's something to build a plant, it's something to bring the technology, but what makes it special is the people. And therefore, I think that the biggest advantage, like I said, it's the talent we have, it's the strength of the ecosystem we have, is the critical mineral, and I would say the proximity to resources, assembly line, and markets. It's the renewable energy we have, and it's access to market. And I would say in the world which is fraught with challenges, stability, predictability in the rule of law is in high demand and short supply. And therefore, when you have investors which are deciding where to put their money, just look where they've decided to put it. They've put it in Canada. And for them, you know, the world is their oyster. They could put these investments anywhere they want. They chose Canada. So again, I think Canadians should rejoice that in the economy of the 21st century, whether it's in steel, whether it's aluminum, whether it's the automotive, whether it's life sciences, whether it's energy, we're attracting record level of investment. And we should be proud as Canadians that we're leading in the 21st century.
Great, thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Monsieur Garon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Caron. You have the floor for 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair and Minister. Welcome to the committee. I hope I won't interrupt you too much, but there have been important introduced around compensatory tariffs for wood, and I know that you've come from the north of Quebec, and I'm very sensitive to the situation of lumber. It's a crisis that's gone on for years. 20% of Canadian wood exports are from Quebec. 50% of the sums imposed are affecting Quebec. And I think the forestry sector has been reorganized in the past to ensure that there is not this kind of tariff. And I think the Americans have been acting in bad faith. I think we lose a lot of time trying to go through various procedures, but we are in a precarious situation, and they can't increase their productivity without and can't protect jobs in this area. And of course, there are negotiations of a free trade that you've participated in, but this is very important. But for the compensatory tariffs, with regard to the development of an urgent assistance program for these people so that they can respond to these measures and to provide funding for them. Thank you very much. And I think this is an important issue as well. And I think that pulp and paper industry, forestry is at the heart of the economic region where I live, because you know that Shawinigan is in the heart of the forestry and pulp and paper sector. And in fact, it is a challenge that there's there's the problem of the softwood lumber. This is a long-standing issue, and we work with our American partners, and we try to stress the importance of innovation with our producer. And I don't, if I may, though, I'm going to interrupt you because these industries have to have rapid assistance because with regard to satellites and others, there are a lot of sectors that are getting quick assistance, and I think that the government acts more quickly to assist industry when they're having difficulties quicker than with the pulp and paper industry. Is there any assistance program for these businesses who have to pay these tariffs and they have to pay them immediately? Is there any immediate assistance for them? You know that we've always been there for the pulp and paper industry, and this is not only for the current situation with a number of areas. We're stressing the importance of innovation, and we're working with partners, and we have to bring the pulp and paper industry to new ways of using these resources. And where I live, there is but the chair. I'm really familiar with your region, and I think these businesses need assistance, and I understand that you don't have anything in the works for them. But I think that maybe we can deal with the file of the committee. They sent you correspondence. I think there are three parts in the bill where there are a number of different elements, and there's possibility to accelerate this bill. I think three of the opposition parties are against this bill. And could you suggest any solution to substitute the tribunal with something else? And I think that when you take the floor, can you provide any suggestions to replace this tribunal? What leadership have you taken with regard to the wood situation? No. No, I don't want to come back to the wood, but I've been here for a long time, and I've supported the industry for a long time. But no, I'm getting to it. And I can't talk quicker because, I mean, the interpreters are asking me to speak a bit slower. But yes, and you'll see again this afternoon, I'm going to talk about the importance of us researchers. We have the best researchers in the world. And the Commissioner, C27, is a very interesting case. It's something that we have to do. Canada is a leader. And with regard to the tribunal, I'm coming back to this now. I know you're impatient. I'm getting to the answer. We're always impatient but it's true that we're studying the tribunal. I've listened to the opposition, but the fact is that I think that in the interest of the nation and beyond political considerations, we have to have measures for artificial intelligence. I believe it. Experts say this, and I think that we have to find a way to move forward. I know that you're a reasonable man and that you want to defend the Quebec interests. I think that in the ecosystem we live in, we have to listen to Quebecers. We have to have a framework, and we're happy to work with the Bloc. Thank you very much, Minister. Mr. Massé, over to you, 6 minutes.
Thank you for being there, Mr. Minister. Unfortunately, have to stay here for the moment. A couple obligations to take care of. So, real quick with C27, you were prancing about Montreal area, blaming the committee for holding the bill up. We've had to issue a letter to yourself. I hope you've seen the letter with regards to concerns expressed. Do you have anything to report back to us with regards to your position on the tribunal? I thought that we actually worked fairly well as a committee together to come up with a plan to at least see if we can get over the hurdle of the tribunal. And so my question, quite frankly, is do you regret your public relations strategy of basically blaming the committee here for the bill and the problem right now? And second of all, are you still open, or are you open to splitting the bill so we can get the issues related to the one section of the bill through, because we may not get the second on artificial intelligence through?
So let me be clear, I do not regret the comments I made, because you should have seen the frustration of Canadians to want to see an AI bill. And this is part of the science community, experts in the country and industry. We need to have an AI bill for Canada. So my voice was mild compared to what people are telling me that we need in this country. That being said, Mr. Massé, I'm very happy and open to look with you to find a way, because I know that in the minority parliament, it's the heart of the possible that we need to reach. And I'm glad that you're willing to work with us. Like I said, this is not about political party. This is about Canadians wanting something. It's about experts. You know, you have Yoshua Benjo. I'm not sure if you need to listen to many more people than the father of AI, which says we need regulation, because what we want, we need to move from fear to opportunity. And in order to do that, we need to build trust and we need to have regulation. I think this is well established across the world. We want to be a leader in responsible AI. I heard you on tribunal, and I know your position. I take it to heart because I trust you and I value your opinion. And I would say with my officials, we're looking at ways that could accommodate you and the comments we receive from the Bloc, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
Okay, well, again, if we're going to get past this, hopefully there'll be at least some observance of what the committee is actually doing. We are hearing different things as well, too. I want to switch topics to EVs real quickly. We're winding down our EV incentive for consumers in this country. Doug Ford canceled the EV incentive from the province of Ontario. So if you have a Windsor-built minivan, it'll get support from the British Columbia government. It won't get from the Ontario government where it's built. And in the United States, they have significantly more incentives for EVs. What's your plan to deal with this in terms of lowering costs for consumers with regards to the EV incentive? That's one thing that has been uniting the industry, the workers, and so forth. What's your plan to deal with that?
I appreciate the comment, Mr. Massé, and I would say I'm glad that Windsor will see a rebirth like never before now with the Stellantis investment, and that we have given a hope back to a community, to thousands of workers, because Windsor is going to be the center of the automotive, the rebirth of the automotive sector, and I'm pleased to see that what we've done with Stellantis. Now, to your question, obviously, it's good to work on the industrial side to make sure that we would build these electric vehicles in Canada, but we need to work on adoption. I think that's what your point is. We need to make sure that, we have adoption. We've seen what's going on in the United States, where we've been working with provinces, but I would agree with you that governments, and I will put governments with an S, still need to work to make sure we have greater adoption, because now we have the opportunity in a lifetime that we're going to be front and center in the automotive industry of the 21st century. And I'm glad to say, Mr. Massey, that a lot of that is going to be in Windsor. And I know you had that at heart with the unions to work with us to make that a reality. And the fact that Stellantis is probably the first plant that's going to be fully built should make us rejoice, because, this is a tangible outcome of our outreach to them, of investments, but also of opportunity and possibilities for workers for generations to come.
In specifically, though, is it not a little humiliating, though, in the sense that the U.S. government right now, federally, and also most state governments support building an EV vehicle in Windsor more than your current government and other provincial governments, because the incentives don't line up and they're quite significantly smaller, and you're sunsetting those investments. So what specifically is your government out of providing an incentive for purchasing of EV vehicles in Windsor and other domestic players?
Yeah, I saw some members looking. I think we have made historic investments in the automotive industry. I think there's very few people who would disagree with that, to say that what we had at the time was to make sure that we had the level playing field with the United States, that we would do strategic investments, targeted investments, to make sure that we land these big investments. You remember, Mr. Massey, you and I were talking whether these investments would ever come in Canada. And now we have landed north of $40 billion of investment, a fair amount in Windsor. Like I said, the federal incentive program is still in place. We have been there with the manufacturers to make sure that Canada gets its fair share. And I would say now this is an industry. You remember when I started, Mr. Massey, because you've been following that industry for a long time, there were commentators that were thinking, was that the end of the industry? And now people are talking about the rebirth of the industry for 100 years. So what we have achieved together is quite remarkable, and that's the strength of Canadians, of workers, of our sheer will to do great things together. And I hope Windsor will inspire the nation as what we can do together.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre. Merci, Monsieur Massey. Madame Rempel-Garner.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Rempel-Garner.
Your government has given billions of tax dollars to Telsat, a low-Earth satellite internet company that has no low-Earth satellite internet network and connects no one to the internet. The reason why you said you gave a satellite internet company that has no satellite network and connects no one to the internet billions of tax dollars since 2019 is because they promised to connect Canadians to the internet in 2024. It's 2024. Is it fair to say that 0 Canadians are connected to the internet via Telsat Lightspeed?
I would just, well, Ms. Rampel, it's a delight to be in front of you this morning. Just for the folks watching at home, because there are many, I just want to say we've provided loans. Canadians understand the difference between a grant and a loan. A loan you make money of. We're making money out of the loan we've provided
you've
to Telesat, which is really what Canadians, they're making money out of that.
Thanks, but you've given billions of dollars, and so it's fair to say that you gave money to a satellite company that doesn't have a satellite network to connect people to the internet, and 0 people are connected to the internet with that billion. It's 0, right? That's the number of people that are connected after billions?
So if you look at the evolution of LEO satellites in the world, you first need to raise the money, so you put them in orbit, then you provide connection. It's the same thing, by the way, to all the Americans firm who did that with federal funding. What we're saying is that we're using our balance sheet by giving a loan. We're not giving it. We're lending money. So we're making money out of that to provide the network so we can connect people.
It's a great point, though, because you said you've loaned them. You loaned them money in 2021, and again, they had no satellite network, and they said that they would connect people to the internet by 2024. About 40,000 people, I think, but no people are connected to the internet, and you just gave them $2 billion more. I mean, call me crazy, but like, why would you give more money to a satellite internet company that doesn't have a satellite network to connect people to the internet when they haven't connected people
Well,
to the internet?
it's very, very simple. First of all, giving and lending is different. Canadians know because they pay interest on loans. So in this case, the government of Canada didn't give anything. We loan money. We make money. So the government of Canada makes money. So the way you do, first you lend money to a company. It's the same thing in the United States, by the way. I can go to all the companies who had launch of satellites if you want. I'm happy to do that.
No.
I
gotta say, like, you have
they
a great
put the satellite
pitch.
and then you provide communication. That's how it works.
So it's like you're giving people tax dollars to make money, but yet the company doesn't have satellites and doesn't sell internet to Canadians. So how would they pay it back?
Let me.
No, it's okay. No, I want to go back. How many people are connected to the internet today after all these billions?
So
It's zero, right?
Let me start that back. It's very simple. You lend money, so the government makes money. So you lend money to a company. The company puts the satellite in orbit, and then you provide communication.
Is this what they told you?
It's exactly what happened in the United States. The alternative is to outsource that to foreign firms. Canadians
okay.
don't want to outsource their national security.
On
so
that
that's
point,
why we're going to be
that's
doing
a great
exactly
point. It's
that.
a foreign firm. So this company that you gave billions to, it's 36% owned by an American fund. Actually, according to American filings, American investment funds own about 63% of it. And the board chair is American. So is that what you define as a Canadian? So now you're paying an American fund that doesn't have satellites to deliver internet service that hasn't connected anyone to the internet. And you've bought their pitch because you're giving me their pitch. You just gave them more money and they haven't connected anybody
Well,
to
listen,
the internet.
I love that discussion. I guess, Mr. Chair, maybe we can have experts come here to explain a loan and a grant. It's kind of a different thing. The government of Canada did not give anything. The government of Canada is making money out of a company because you use your balance sheet where you borrow at a lower rate and you lend at a higher rate.
But they're not
so
selling
Canadians
any
are making
product,
money,
right?
and we're going to be making 2 satellites in Canada. The largest factory of satellite in the world is going to be in this country.
Okay.
You should be celebrating Canadian innovation, Canadian manufacturing, Canadian worker. We're going to lead the world.
But you're like not concerned about giving money to a company that has launched no satellites after 5 years and has connected no one to the internet, which suggests they can't make any profit to pay back the loan. But I digress. Part of this loan, or you're actually giving money to Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, to launch these non-existent satellites. So why are you okay with giving Elon Musk's company all of these millions of dollars, but not allowing or encouraging Canadians to access existing satellite services with other companies? Because it's all going to American companies. I mean, God bless America, but like you're kind of
So I'm trying to follow because you criticized me at the time with Elon, which I happen to know, and now you're criticizing me for favoring a Canadian company.
No, I'm just saying what you said in the media.
I'm criticized on both sides so I just tried to get it.
You're going on both sides here. So I'm just trying to clarify. You're giving billions to a company that doesn't have satellites and has connected no one to the internet because it's a Canadian company, but it's owned by Americans, and it's launching satellites it doesn't have with Elon Musk's company. And this is a good deal for Canadians, right?
I love that discussion, sir. Do you have time to answer, Chair?
Yes, but you're out of time, MP Rempel-Garner, but I'll let the minister respond.
So for Canadians
about 30
watching
seconds.
at home, we're giving nothing. We're providing a loan. We're making money out of the company. The company is going to launch 198 satellites to provide communication to ensure the national security of Canadians. And at the same time, Mr. Chair, we should be happy. We have the largest factory of satellite of its kind in the world. We'll be producing 2 satellites a day in this country. Workers, the industry, everyone is rejoicing that Canada is going to lead in the industry of the aerospace of the 21st century. And whilst we're going to be making money for Canadians.
Merci. Monsieur Van Bynen, la parole est à vous pour 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mindwine.
The purpose of this meeting was to talk about your mandate letter, Mr. Minister. So while some members here are still debating whether or not climate change even exists, the rest of the international community is pivoting towards a net zero economy. We know that there are tremendous environmental and economic risks associated with inaction on the climate file, but also tremendous economic opportunities available to countries who are willing to be ambitious and to seize this unique moment. Your mandate letter includes a direction to, and I'll quote, create more jobs, and achieve long-term economic and industrial transformation towards a low-carbon future. Why do you view this as an essential part of promoting Canadian innovation and productivity?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Van Biden, for the question. I mean, if you look at the state of the world, there's two megatrends in the world. It's decarbonization and digitization of the economy. On decarbonization, I think we're doing very well. We've attracted record investment, for example, in aluminum. Actually, the smelter of Rio Tinto in Saguenay, where, Mr. Genereux would know very well where it is, and Monsieur Garon, imagine the smelter in Saguenay today is going to be providing green aluminum to plants in the United States of BMW and Audi. So we should know, but it's in Quebec, so you should be proud that the smelter will be providing green aluminum to the North American auto industry. We're doing the same thing in steel. I was just yesterday with the FASCO, and we were talking about their plan to green and to reduce millions of tons of CO2 emission. And you know why that matters? Is because in the world of the 21st century, those economies which decarbonize are going to win. And you don't need to take it from me. Just look at, for example, the CEO of Mercedes-Benz. So the CEO of Mercedes-Benz has been very vocal that by 2035, he would give you a certificate of zero carbon in a car if you were to buy one of his cars. So that means that the whole industry is going to decarbonize. So those who invest in green mines, electric mines, green steel, green aluminum are going to win in the economy of the 21st century. And that's what we did with battery as well, to build an ecosystem that we're going to be able to supply the economy of the 21st century, which is going to be decarbonized. At the same time, we've been investing in the digital economy because we understand that the role of AI and quantum is going to be fundamental. So I would say Canada has never been in a better position because in this world where you need to decarbonize and digitize with more automation, robotization, and productivity, which is going to be linked, that brings back prosperity. So if you look at the scheme, these two megatrends are bringing prosperity and addressing productivity in this country. So that's why I'm saying the investments we've done are going to create jobs, are going to sustain jobs, are going to put Canada in a place to win in the economy of the 21st century. And I think that's one of the greatest achievements because the responsibility of members here, it's not only to care for today, but we need to plan for tomorrow and for the years to come and decades to come. And I think we've been able to seize a generational moment, which only happens once in a lifetime. Where do you have breakthrough technology like AI and quantum? Where do you shift after 100 years of how you've been making cars to another way of making cars? The way that we could have done is to step back. But the way we did is to be ambitious, to seize the moment. And I can remember yesterday the CEO, I think the president of Shopify said what he wishes is a more ambitious Canada. I say that at every speech I gave. I say seize the moment, be ambitious. That's what we need to do, and that's what we were, and that's why we win.
So we talked about digitization, artificial intelligence, etc. But properly harnessed and regulated, artificial intelligence has the potential to be one of the greatest technological transformations of our age. And the emerging Canadian ecosystem is among the best in the world. In your conversations with experts, stakeholders, and others, what is their vision of how Canada can continue to cement its position as a responsible global leader in AI?
Well, I'm happy you asked the question. By the way, Canada was the first country in the world to have a national AI strategy. We were also the first one to have a quantum strategy, national quantum strategy. We were the second in the world to have a voluntary code of conduct on AI. And obviously, we were, I think, the second or first jurisdiction in the world to introduce a bill to regulate AI. Because for me, I think, and that's what I think members of this committee care about, we need to move from fear to opportunity. And in order to do that, you need to build trust in society. And the way you build trust is through regulation, that people understand that, what AI is going to do for them and that we're not going to let the genie out of the bottle. We're going to make sure that whatever innovation is there, it's going to be responsible and it's going to serve humanity. Canadians want to be at the forefront of innovation. I'm going to be at one of the biggest summits in a few hours in Toronto today. But at the same time, they expect us as regulators, as legislators, to make sure that it's going to be responsible, that it's going to serve them and humanity, and that there are going to be guidelines, and that's what I hope we can achieve with this committee.
Thank you.
Merci,
Chair, I'm out of
monsieur.
time.
Oui, vous n'avez plus de temps, monsieur.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Van, and thank you, Mr. Garon. Over to you for 2.5 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair. The Minister said that when you, with regard to C27, you have an industry that is impatient, that's angry, and I think that I understand that this is an industry that's important for you as well. And with regard to AI, there's also the issue of copyrights, and we have groups that are waiting to ensure that there is respect for copyright in the visual arts and for of course with regard to research and universities. It's like you have rules or attitudes that change depending on who you're talking to. With regard to copyright, this is something that's essential, and I think that we are very interested. I agree that we have to protect copyrights, and I think we have to observe international practice. But when I listen to experts with regard to AI, and when there are experts like Joshua Benchel, who's someone that we have to listen to, I think that in Quebec we have one of the biggest or most important international experts. But Minister, I only have a couple of minutes, so I think that when we have people like these, we know the road to follow, but you know the importance of time, and I only have a minute, and I asked you a question with regard to the reform of the Copyright Act, and we're saying that we're working on this, and we're consulting the various stakeholders. I'm very happy to believe you, but when we talk about groups that are trying to meet you and discuss this with you, they have the impression that there's no movement. And I understand that that you're the minister, and you have the obligation to actually act and to make laws, not just to say that you're in favor of this or that. And I would like to get a reply from him. But I have a law. It's C27, and we're trying to move forward with it. But it's not just idle talk. We're doing something, but yes, I think the society is it's very important for society. We have to balance copyright law and copyright rights, and we are studying it very closely. And thank you for raising this issue. It's there are many things to do with regard to copyright law, and I'm trying to find the best way to go forward with regard to a complex issue. But thank you for raising this point. Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. Mr. Massé, 2.5.
Key elements to investment is infrastructure redundancy, and we have the Gordie Howe Bridge coming online very soon. But as you know, Mr. Minister, the Ambassador Bridge recently was allowed to carry, or will be allowed to carry, hazardous material from the state of Michigan over the bridge, which has got the fire department opposed to, the police association, CBSA union, City of Windsor, other businesses, and so forth, because the hazardous material will require extensive interventions, including escorts, to get across the bridge, when this actually can be done safely in months to come on the Gordie Howe Bridge. I've raised this to you, and what have you done since then? Because this is going to actually deter investment into Ontario, because one leak alone on the Blue Water Bridge shut the bridge down for 9 hours, and that was just a leak, and they had the proper containment systems in place. So what is being done with this October deadline coming up with regards to hazmat, environmentally and also economically?
Mr. Massé, I want to thank you for raising this very important issue. And I know you asked a question in the House, and I think we owe you a more fulsome answer. And I will say that to you this morning. I was talking to my Deputy Minister to make sure that we work with Transport Canada. As you know, it's more a Transport Canada issue in terms of regulation. But I know you're raising something important. I know you're raising something that requires attention. You also mentioned Gordie Howe, and I want to thank you as well because you were with me at the time when I was, I think, Minister of Infrastructure, to make sure that we have communities on both sides of the border, seize the moment of that project and create something that I think the community is happy, and this is going to be the largest crossing in North America. So I would just say on that, Mr. Massey, I was saying to the Deputy Minister that we should come back to you with the civil service to make sure that we provide you a more fulsome answer on the very important topic that you raised this morning.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and that's fair and fine. The deadline is coming. And again, the toxic materials are not only just regards a danger to the environment and ecosystem, but also will complicate bridge traffic and operations for just-in-time delivery of various industries. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. We have about 5 minutes left, so I'll split it between Conservatives and Liberals. So 2.5 minutes for Mr. Perkins and 2.5 for MP Badaway. So, Mr. Perkins, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, the CEO of Telsat, who is a close personal friend of the new Liberal Finance Minister, Mark Carney, was given over 800,000 shares in Telsat in 2021. Are you aware of that?
I don't understand your question. You refer to people who don't have the capacity that you refer to.
You don't understand that the CEO was given 800,000 shares of his own company?
I do not understand the comments you made before about the finance minister.
I'll move on then, since you don't seem to be aware of the CEO's compensation when you gave him $2 billion recently. Are you aware that because of your announcement and the stock appreciation, he's got another 360,000 shares that are now in the money? So the total of all of that value is $21 million that's gone up for the CEO, Daniel Goldberg, since your announcement. Are you aware of that?
You know, I'd hope you would care as much about the CEO than the workers that we are providing a future in building 2 satellites a day. You focus a lot on one person as opposed to focusing on workers in the industry, Mr. Perkins. I think that you should see that as a way for us to protect national security. And for you not to acknowledge that we are going to have a own network of LEO satellite in Canada, I think Canadians are watching at home are wondering why you focus on one and not focus on them.
I'm sure they're wondering why it is that Liberals are enriching themselves to the point of $21 million on a company that isn't paying back any of the $5 billion of loans that you've given them. When you made this latest $2 billion bailout announcement, you said that it was making the sector flourish. But isn't it really just making carbon tax Carney and Liberals'
You see,
bank
Mr.
accounts
Perkins,
flourish?
I have a lot of respect for you because you're a man of honor. But I don't think Canadians and democracy is well served by comments like that and saying things that are not factually correct, sir.
I don't think it's well
Canadians are
served
watching at
by
home.
Liberals
I respect
enriching
you.
themselves
You're an honorable
at
member of this
your
House, but I don't think that
government's
spreading
expense
things like
and
you're doing now
taxpayers'
and
expense.
lies are not helping, sir.
Colleagues, Mr. Perkins, let the minister answer. If you ask questions, you have to. The general rule is we give as much time for the answer as it took for the question. So, Minister, you still have a few seconds left, and then we'll.
Well, I'm happy to answer any questions, sirs, but I think everyone in this House, me included, and every member should be honorable and think that, we're here to serve democracy and Canadians.
Being
and
honorable is
spreading
answering the
facts that are
questions when
not
you're
accurate
asked in
is
a
not helping
parliamentary
for
committee and you're
democracy.
not answering our questions.
Mr. Perkins, I'd also appreciate, I've heard comments referring to people with some sorts of
funny names and all that.
This is
We're not in
this is
kindergarten.
play yard or House of Commons, but not for the committee. Okay, I would appreciate if we stick to more decorum in this committee. MP Badaway.
Mr. Chairman, Minister, the PM and yourself recently made a $1.6 billion announcement on an investment in the city of Port Colborne. Asahi Kasai is a leading supply chain partner with Honda. So I guess my question is going to lead to and go into a bit more in depth with respect to supply chains, both binationally and internationally. So can you speak about the investments that you and your team are making to strengthen productivity as well as superclusters like the EV superclusters across the country, as the announcement was just made in the city of Port Colborne? The coordinated and strategic approach you have led to, one, strengthening regional integration, enhancing cross-border coordination, as well as resilience and competitiveness a bilateral approach, and sometimes even leading into an international approach, strengthening the resilience of supply chains, diversifying sources, joint capital investments, a coordinated strategy, binational strategy that encourages joint investments in, for example, transportation, technology, workforce development, environmental and trade standards, an opportunity to harmonize environmental as well as labor standards within our supply chains, and finally, future-proofing against disruptions, focusing on creating contingency plans and adopting frameworks ensuring not only our country, but the countries that we partner with can respond quickly to unforeseen challenges.
Well, I just want to say thank you, and for all of those watching, you've been instrumental in landing that big investment in Port Colborne, and I'm glad to see Port Colborne part of the big supply chain we've built. You know, you remind me of something in my role as also co-chair of Canada-United States engagement. There's three things that always come to mind when you talk to our friends down south, which really matters for Canadians. The first thing is about security. And I think today was a lot about that, and I'm happy by the question from the Conservatives because it highlights the investments we've made to protect our national security, to protect the North and the Arctic, and I can tell you that resonates with our American partners. The second thing I would say that resonates with our American partners is supply chain resiliency. Coming out of COVID, those global supply chains are becoming more regional. And I remember being one CEO in the United States recently said, you know what I like about you in Canada? If things go wrong, I can truck stuff in Canada. If it goes really wrong, I'll put it in the back of my car. And that is just highlighting the role of these key strategic supply chains we've built between Canada and the United States. And the same thing on semiconductors, which Canadians should be proud that 80% of all the semiconductors manufactured in the United States, which are packaged and tested in North America, are packaged and tested in Canada. 80% of all of them. So that's the strategic nature of supply chain we have. And the last thing is a growth agenda for North America. And I can tell you this is bipartisan. When I talk to Republicans, they say, we love you, you talk business. When I talk to Democrats, they say, we love you because you're aligned on policy. And what you're highlighting is, I think, what we have been able to achieve as Canadians. It's not about me. It's about us as Canadians that we have achieved thanks to your work, the work of members of this committee, the work of parliamentarians and this government. We have seized the opportunity of a generation. And now who's benefiting? It's community like Port Colborne. It's Mr. Massey from Windsor and our colleague Harek, which is in Windsor. It's community like St. Thomas. It's community like Bécancour in my whole neck of the wood. You know, you're changing the landscape, the industrial landscape of this country is never going to look the same because we seize the moment, we seize the opportunities. And I so wish, you know, because I know my time is over, Mr. Chair, that this should be a whole of Parliament thing. You know, I wish the Conservatives would realize as well that we're building the country of the future, that we're investing in worker, that we're lending historical investment, and we should celebrate Canadian company, we should celebrate Canadian worker, and we should celebrate what Canada has been able to achieve because that's what Canadians expect from us.
Thank you, Minister.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. Thank you for coming to appear before the committee and for answering our questions. Thank you as well to the public service representatives who are with you. And we'll suspend briefly to allow us to say goodbye and also. have Mrs. Gregory and Bilodeau, who will be here to answer our questions. There will be no opening remarks. The minister's already made some remarks, so we'll start right away with our discussion.
Mr. Patzer for 6 minutes with officials.
Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, I'll just start off the top here. The minister indicated that we are going to be making loads of money off of this loan that we gave to Telesat. So I'm just curious then, the loan was in 2021, it's now 2024. How much money has the Government of Canada made in that loan payback plan?
So our funding to date for Telesat includes a contribution under SIF, which was $85 million. It includes $600 million pre-purchase agreement, where nothing has been paid so far, and includes a recent loan at the amount of $2.14 billion.
Yeah, so in 2021 though, like, so the $600 million and the $85 million, that was 2019. That's not what I asked about, and that's a contribution agreement. There's a loan for $800 million. He was saying, oh, it's at 2%, and then we're loaning it at 10%. He said that we are going to make money on that. So how much money has the Government of Canada made in the 3 years since that loan in 2021 was given out?
I'm actually happy to come back directly and provide the committee sort of all details of the financial agreement with Telesat.
Can you please table a like a month-by-month repayment plan of that loan with the committee?
We'll provide information on loan and the details and the repayments. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, so this 2021 loan, when did the negotiations or when did the conversations around this loan, when did that begin? Or sorry, the 2024 loan, sorry, my bad. The one that was just announced here, this one for, this recent one that was just announced here the other day, when did that process become initiated?
Well, we've had ongoing We've had ongoing discussions with Telesat for a while. I would say that the discussions around our financial support have been engaged for a number of years, including way back into the SIF agreements. The more fulsome negotiations around the potential loans would have been over the last several months.
So specifically on the $2.1 billion, that only started in the last couple months? Specifically,
we have an ongoing relationship with Telesat through a number of funding agreements. And so we've had insights into their finances for a number of years. We've had insights into sort of the relationship for a number of years. But wholesale sort of negotiations around the loans would have been over the last several months.
So you must have had formal negotiations with Telesat on the $2.1 billion, yes or no?
The department was active in discussions with Telesat to get to the loans, yes.
Okay, and when did that begin? Specific to this one, not I know there's a long-standing relationship, that's not what I'm asking about. Specific to the $2.1 billion, when did that begin?
I don't have an exact date. I can tell you it's been several months. I can come back to you if we have an exact date. But again, it's sort of an evolving discussion and relationship with a strategic company for Canada.
Okay, so can you table that information with the committee as well too?
We can provide information on our discussions and negotiations with Telesat.
Thank you very much. How many homes will be connected to internet because of these loans and these investments? How many homes?
Well, the investment is in a strategic capacity for Telesat. So the objective of the relationship with Telesat, certainly there's an element that is about connecting homes, but the primary sort of government instrument for connecting homes around the UBF and the $2 billion investments that are being made. The objective is...
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you just because I do have limited time. There must have been a cost analysis, like a cost benefit done. We're connecting homes, we're investing this much money. What was the cost analysis benefit done on the investment for connecting people to broadband, connecting homes? What's that cost analysis benefit? Do you have that?
We have a number of analysis that was done. Obviously, in this case, the sole objective of this investment is not only to build homes, to connect homes. It is to build a strategic capacity in Canada with a Canadian company. We have other investments, including a $600 million pre-purchase agreement where no money's been paid, that will connect homes at the rate of Telesat, but no money's been dispersed out of that one.
Okay. When it comes to some guardrails that maybe would have been put in place regarding billions of dollars in loans, Are there executive compensation restrictions for executives at Telesat while these loans are outstanding, just to make sure that any taxpayer money is specifically going to a deliverable rather than to an executive compensation package?
There are some of the details which I can't necessarily provide because they would be consumer confidential. There are a number of covenants within any agreements, within any of our agreements, including requirements for investments to be in Canada, to remain in Canada, for the company to stay in Canada.
But executive compensation agreements, are you telling me that these executives could potentially be lining their pockets with taxpayer money? You didn't put a guardrail in place to make sure that taxpayer money is only going to go to deliverables and not to executives?
Our investments are based on the investments that have to be made by the company.
To the executives or to the deliverable?
So there are a number of guardrails within the agreement. I can come back to you on what is shareable or not based on including...
Please. Yeah, please do. I would appreciate that. Very quickly, when do you expect the Northvolt plant in Quebec to be operational?
So thank you for the question. So essentially, as communicated by the company, there's a strategic review that's being conducted by the company in Europe. The company is ensuring us that the start of production date in Canada is not going to be affected. Therefore, the start of the production date is planned for 2027.
Merci, Monsieur Patzer. C'est tout le temps que vous aviez. Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patzer. Mr. Aria.
My question to mobility strategy. There's a lot of interest on Canadian critical mining, exploration, and production, like even with the U.S. Defense Department, Pentagon investing in some exploration companies. We hear quite a bit about the battery manufacturing companies. We hear about the electrical vehicle manufacturing companies. But one key thing in the chain that is not highlighted or discussed more is the mineral processing, which is the most critical of the entire mines to mineral strategy, in my view. China today controls 70 to 90% of those mineral processing. So are there projects that you can highlight or the strategy that you have specifically for that segment of the value chain?
Yeah, absolutely. The department, primarily through the SIF, is making significant and important investments in critical minerals. Those include, for example, E3 lithium that received $27 million to demonstrate the viability of the extraction of lithium from Alberta. Rio Tinto, $220 million for critical minerals projects in Sorel-Tracy, and then to your point on refinement, $37 million for battery-grade nickel sulfate and processing nickel pellets and rounds in Vallée-Bécancour. It is an area of focus.
I'm sorry, I'm forgetting it. You're giving a lot of numbers. All the numbers that you're mentioning are related to mineral processing only?
The Vallée investments would be around processing.
Okay, anyway, please provide that information later in writing. I would really appreciate it. Then, the international trade, free trade, as we know it, is blown up, is dead now. We are talking of near-shoring, friend-shoring, and the emphasis on self-reliance. When we talk on self-reliance in the North American context, we talk about Canada, US, and Mexico. So do you think that we have to come with an industrial policy, a comprehensive industrial policy that addresses the self-reliance needs in the changed, globalized trade?
I think there's been significant action and investments around industrial policies, around areas that are deemed of strategic importance. One potential example is around semiconductors, where there's been a realignment of the global supply chains and where there's been investments by the Government of Canada to shore up our capacities. The Minister has highlighted significant investments in EVs. You've also mentioned critical minerals. And so there have been concerted actions by the government in areas that are deemed as both promising and important for the future, important for our supply chains.
That. I'm sorry to interrupt. I got limited time. I was talking actually about a comprehensive industrial policy Anyway, let's move on this Telesat, the providing internet services and other communication things to northern parts of Canada is important, not just from the helping the indigenous communities getting access to internet and broadband, but also from the defense point of view. Can you highlight two things? Can you highlight the importance of the investment that we are making to Telesat from the northern defense point of view, especially with the climate change opening up the North Passage? It has been very critical to Canada for the what we call as an ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance of the North, and how this investment can help in that regard.
Yeah, obviously, there is significant global interest in investments in low Earth orbits. The investments in Telesat specifically will help connect the North, pre-purchasing and pre-connecting or making commitments of up to $600 million to connect through Telesats is intended to connect the North. Building up the technology will be an investment in the strategic capabilities. And that's augmented, as I mentioned earlier, through significant investments, actually probably the most significant investments by the Canadian government in connectivity through the $2 billion UBF program, through which it is intended that 98% of Canadians will be connected by 2026 and 100% of Canadians by 2030.
Okay. There was a mention about the guardrails when it comes to financing Telesat. Legitimate questions, I should say, but at the same time, how are you ensuring that the company will continue to be majority Canadian owned? Why is that after getting the finance and after developing technology, it gets sold out to foreign entities?
There are strong provisions within all our agreements, including with the Telesat, that would preclude transfer or selling of a company to other nations or transfer that technology, and would include repayment provisions.
Quickly, with the limited time available, the steel and aluminum sectors, all the companies in steel industries and aluminum industries are foreign owned, and there's been no increase in installed capacity within the steel industry or the aluminum industry except for a small smelter. There is no increase in installed capacity for the last 20 years. However, we continue to protect steel industries from competition, and there's no more Canadian owned. Then where's the growth coming from? If you look at the number of workers working in the steel and aluminum sector, it has actually come down during the last 20 years. So where is the growth that is going to come on? Where we can use the Canadian natural resources, we can use the Canadian talent, we can use the Canadian technology to grow.
Thank you, sir. I think that's an excellent question, and I think part of the government's suite of programs has intended to focus on areas where we see the highest potential of growth, in addition to general support programs. So the government has made significant investments, for example, through the clusters, in areas like next generation manufacturing, the protein industry. The minister has highlighted a significant number of investments through programs like the SIF. In places like EVs. In addition, through things like the National Ship Procurement Strategy, we're also making significant investments, and the government is making significant investments in building up capacity around shipbuilding and jobs around shipbuilding. So there have been a number of investments intended to grow sectors that are strategic or viewed as strategic by the government for Canada, and to grow our economy through that.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur Garon, la parole est à vous pour 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garon. 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to our witnesses. We've been told that in recent months there have been some radio spectrum frequencies that have been will allow businesses to provide internet services in rural areas. And we've been told that these radio frequencies will have been given to the biggest telecommunications company who bid on them. And and so we will require smaller internet service providers that are often very present in rural areas to maybe they will be forced to stop their activities, and this is a very important. And I'd like to know if you've been informed about this situation, or you have any information, and how can it be that we've redistributed by bidding in a bidding war these frequencies, and how can we ensure that there is adequate coverage, especially in rural areas? The government policy was to provide ask a request for bids and in order to ensure competition. But with regard to the topic you've raised, generally our policy is to achieve a balance between maximum coverage and also encouraging construction of infrastructure. So, if you like, if I had a case, there's a case, maybe we could send something to provide more information, possibly in writing. Yes, thank you very much. And we'd like to talk to you about the aerospace industry. And in my writing in Mirabel, there's a Harris, which is a very important business, and I know that the issue with regard to the defense industry, and I know that, and last time we talked about systems, and Darius has a policy to become a very much bigger player with regard to aircraft and to do so, the government of Canada, and I think the Minister of Defence, for example, is searching for a way to a regional maintenance centre for aircraft, and for example, the American aircraft. And has there been any follow up with regard to that at the ministry? And has the government any intention to make this request to take advantage of this opportunity? But I think that there's a limited time to act. We are aware of this possibility, and with regard to military acquisitions, our ministry works closely with the Ministry of Defence and to ensure that such opportunities are available to Canadian industry, and we're aware of this possibility, and we're working with them with our colleagues. Could we look forward to some happy or welcome announcement? Well, that would, with regard to Ms. Demirable, well, that would depend on any negotiation. I'd like to talk about Lancet. And we've had a lot of conversations, and I've said in private and in public that conversations with regard to a new tribunal, and I've seen documents, and this new tribunal will be necessary because, in part, because the commissioner, with regard to personal information and personal data. This is an issue that was dealt with at the federal court, and often the commissioner lost cases before the federal court, and there were we've heard that there is information that there were 7 cases where 4 times the commissioner lost because of jurisdictional issues and not because of the facts. And is there any way that we could ensure that with regard to the commissioner does not really have much success with the federal courts at the federal court level, and can we not find some way of understanding, or how the minister or the commissioner would to assist the commissioner? It's a very important institution, I think, the commissioner does have a very important role. The role of the tribunal is to meet an objective with regard to an important issue, and there are other commissioners that have a similar role. But with regard to the fact that the commissioner loses 70% of cases before the federal court, is there nothing can be done to assist? I'm not aware of that. I don't know. I don't expect that you should know. You'll know exactly the details. But this is something that I would ask. And with regard to meetings in the area of C27, and I think over the next few weeks, since you're here, and I see that your colleague is here as well with you, and I think that I would like to know if there's anything that can be done. I will try to provide some follow-up and look into this matter. Thank you very much. That's the end of your time. Mr. Massé, over to you.
Mr. Chair, to the witnesses, thank you. I want to come back around to EV incentives because I don't really think I got a wholesome response with regards to where the government policy is going from the minister with regards to the $5,000 incentive that we have. And so to be specific, we have $5,000 that you can pull from a fund. When is the fund going to run out of money, or when is the fund going to cease to exist? And what is being done to address that? Because again, I mentioned Ontario had a $5,000 incentive, got rid of. The United States has a $7,500 US incentive for those vehicles, which probably translate to about $30,000 Canadian. It's just a joke anyway. But the reality is, though, is that the incentive program is there. And then lastly, can we not define the incentive program for Canadian-built vehicles alone? We saw some of the Chinese vehicles accessing these grants. So what can you update this committee on that?
Well, thank you for the question. I would first note that the incentive program is within the purview of Transport Canada, and so happy to follow up with them. To the best of my knowledge, there's not an end date to the program per se. I will ask. So Benoit is our DG, who is amongst other responsible for the auto sector. So maybe I'll ask Benoit if he has anything.
Yeah, and if I could just really quick interject there, so you could really respond. I understand it is under transport, but like under the industry, we worked hard to be similar to the United States in terms of, bumper to bumper, so to speak, and policy and so forth. So that's where the interest comes. And I do not expect you to maybe know all the details, but obviously it is important with regards to Industry Canada supporting the EV creation of batteries, and then Transport Canada then having an incentive to purchase, even though the different departments, obviously the results are united.
Yes, I absolutely understand the point that is being made. I mean, we are obviously very aware of the credit. As I said, to the best of my knowledge, there's no end date to that credit. The role of the department has primarily been to make significant investments in building up the manufacturing and the capacity around EVs and batteries in Canada. But the point is well taken.
I'm going to switch topics then, if I can, to where the status of the grocery store chain's code of conduct is. This committee did do a study back in 2021. I don't expect you to have that knowledge or in front of you, but we did do a study because what happened is that the CEOs magically ended pandemic pay all the same day from the three major stores. And that was a blight on the workers for sure, who worked during the pandemic and were still working, and had their hero pay cut the very same day from the CEOs. Wondering where this code of conduct is at this particular point in time, and how much more runway do they have if it's not in full swing, and why not move to a mandatory one?
Again, thank you for the question, and the code of conduct is in place, and it is one of several measures that we are actually taking on groceries, and those have included reforms to the competition to the Competition Act so that the Competition Bureau has more powers to act in this space. It's also included support for consumer advocacy groups. So the code is in place. We're advancing, making progress, but also happy to provide any additional information by follow-up.
Yeah, how will that be measured in terms of results for Canadians? I guess that's where I'm interested in. So I had a bill called the Right to Repair that ended up becoming a voluntary agreement instead of legislation. The problem with the bill is it requires continually advocacy, but also too there are at least structures in place for the industries and so forth to deal with practical problems. What is being done to measure results on this voluntary code?
I think in this space, it is about monitoring the behavior and monitoring the actions to ensure that there's an alignment with the code that is being actively done by the department.
So there is no capability of requirements. So it's basically we have another set of binoculars on top of and we watch prices. Is that really what we do? And then how does that get reported back to the public? And then what power does the minister have to actually go to them and tell them that, you know, these are the same people that fix the price of bread? I mean, this is pretty serious stuff. I mean, it's a basic staple of human existence, and they fix the price. So is there nothing the minister can do? It just basically say, I don't know, you're cheating Canadians again?
Well, I think if there's any concerns about collusion, about price fixing, those are matters that would be directly under the purview of the Competition Commissioner, and there would be an expectation that the Commissioner and the Commissioners would act in that space. Powers of the Commissioner have been enhanced to allow for greater capacity to act, including through things like market studies. And so the actions to which you are pointing, for example, if there were to be price fixing or others, those are actions that would be directly undertaken and reviewed by the Competition Commissioner.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Monsieur Massé. C'est tout le temps que vous aviez.
Thank you very much. Mr. Généreux, over to you. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses. Mr. Bilodeau, according to the factories, the 150 million per year for Telesat. Is Canada a client of Telesat for services? And if yes, what is the amount per year in the most recent year? Because I'm talking about 150 million for 2023, I think it was the figure I had. My department is not directly involved. I think that we can provide this information for you. Thank you. That would be very much appreciated. And can you tell us if Telesat is a provider to the Government of Canada? I assume so. But and if so, how much? For how much? And what kind of an amount that would be? In an article in the Journal of Montreal of last September, we read that Telesat would be building approximately 200 satellites. And do you believe, and I'm asking the question because personally when I as an entrepreneur, I ask for money from the government or for others, and I have to provide a business plan. And in the business plan, of course, I have to show them that I am capable of making money in order to reimburse the loan. And the minister said that they were lending at 2% and then charging 10% interest. And with regard to Telesat, is there any indication when they will expect to be profitable? And once they've, I don't know what date the 198 satellites will be up and running. And if there's anything about when they would expect to be profitable and start paying back the loan. With regard to the production and activity. I think it's 4 to 5 years for a development period, followed by the actual enter into service. I can get back to you with that answer. Yes, I think that was already in 2019 there were significant loans, and I would imagine that Telesat must have met with the government representatives and have the research and development stage in the agreements with regard to the loans. I would imagine that they have the obligation to ensure that people in the north, in northern regions, will have access to these services. And I would imagine that 2019-24 activities should have already moved towards production for these services. And the business plan, we're now moving towards production. And the business plan that they must have provided to justify these billions of loans and also eventually reimbursement or repayment of the loans. And is there anything therefore in the business plan? Maybe I wasn't clear enough, but with regard to Telesat, there was an investment through the SIF program where $5 million have already been spent, and this is a commitment to increase capacity, and there is a loan in 2021, and now there are new terms that have replaced the terms of the initial loan, and there is now a new loan, and the reimbursement of the 2024 loan will begin in 2029. And if I've understood then, so the billions that have been loaned in 2021, and when you loan money and then it's not spent, then is it so there's no money out, and then there's no money. So I'm sorry, but you've used up all your time. It's 5 minutes, 20 seconds already. Mr. Turnbull, 5 minutes.
Great, thanks for being here. I know some Conservative members have said online that they would have rather just given Elon Musk more money. I'm of the opinion that Telesat is a great Canadian company, but why does the Government of Canada need to lend Telesat money? Like, why are we stepping in and providing a loan? Is it because the market rates are not competitive, or is it that Telesat can't get access to financing? Because I think there's a strategic reason why the Government of Canada is actually doing the work and, enabling the market in certain areas. You've talked about being strategic numerous times, right? So could you speak to why we need to play a role and why this is in the public interest?
Absolutely. So part of the dynamics around this one, low Earth orbit and space generally is a rapidly evolving sector, and one where a number of global competitors are positioning themselves, and those certainly include Starlink and others. Canada has an opportunity to have a major global player in Telesat. There's existing capacity. Reviews of their technologies have been undertaken to make sure that we believe that they have the potential to be a major player in that industry. And so the investments around Telesat, while certainly connecting Canadians is an important component, is seen by the department as a strategic investment in a core Canadian capacity that not only has potential for economic growth, but is strategically important in today's world.
And when you say strategically important, are there other strategically reasons why Telesat is a better investment? Because I think there is. We heard the minister speak of national security. And I think that that's an important consideration here, is it not?
I think that Canadian control and Canadian access through Canadian companies of things like low Earth orbit, our telecommunications is generally strategically important for a number of reasons, whether it's the resilience of the country, whether it's security. That is true for our terrestrial telecommunication systems, and it is true for space and low Earth orbit as well.
So just to be clear, the structure of the loan, there's a payback period. What is the payback period for the latest loan with Telesat?
It's 15 years.
15 years, okay. And I mean, I'm taking it that there's a period of time where if you're, and I'm not an expert in satellite communications technology, I will say at the outset, but I imagine that there's a period of time that's significant in terms of needing to get the infrastructure built, to get the satellites in the air before you have subscribers, where you're going to be sort of pre-revenue. Is that the reason why Telesat hasn't had to pay back a portion of the loan thus far? Like it seems to be logical to me that that would make sense. Is that why the loan is structured that way?
In essence, did you want to jump in on this?
Sure. I think what the government tries to do is help a company like this with patient capital.
Right.
So that's the idea you've expressed and we've tried to do with Telesat, is to build a loan program where during the period of the project and the construction, they keep cash on hand, they keep things going, and then they repay once the project is up and running and in selling mode. Thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. So being a business person myself for 13 years and having run a business and supported a lot of other business owners to grow their businesses, that seems to make a lot of sense to me. Now, the Government of Canada is actually doing this. We're assuming risk by using public investment strategically, incentives and investments. We now have investment tax credits. We have the Canada Growth Fund. We have the Strategic Innovation Fund, the Net Zero Accelerator. There's quite a few of these programs, this suite of programs, I think you referred to them as. And it seems, you know, so wherever we deem there to be a strategic public interest and an advantage that Canada can gain in terms of economic growth, opportunity for workers, also leading the way and being globally competitive. But it seems to be in the public interest. Why, like, the Government of Canada is essentially using its balance sheet to assume some of the risk to attract private capital into those strategic areas. So is that not the sort of the philosophy here, or the theory of change? Is like, can you provide the rationale for that?
So the Government of Canada, through current suite of programs, is actually making investments across a range of business types and size for a number of different factors. Number one, to grow our innovative firms. And so we have programs like the NRC IRAP. Number two, to grow strategic sectors. And examples of programs that help support that would be the global innovation clusters. And three, to help build up Canadian companies where there is a strategic interest. And Canadian capacities. We've seen a number of those investments or those areas where it's been directed. EVs have been some critical minerals. Recent investments in AI are intended to build up Canadian capacity in AI and build on past investments like the Pan-Canadian AI strategy. There are also other sectors like quantum, where we've had a national quantum strategy because the government has judged that is an area and a sector that is poised for growth and a strategic interest for Canada.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Garon, pour 2 minutes 30.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garon. 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to come back to something the Minister said with regard to the softwood lumber, the issue that lasted for decades, and the Americans imposed tariffs frequently, and Canada has to respond. And nevertheless, we have tariffs that are found by the industry and the Government of Canada and Quebec to be unjustified and unfair. And I wonder if there was any emergency program to assist these industries, given that the challenges with the United States, and it's a very important industry in Quebec. And I understand that the minister said that unfortunately there's no such specific program planned, and the ministry said that he was counting on innovation, increasing productivity, etc., but without giving any details. And I wonder if you could give us some idea of the various options that are being considered in the very short term with regard to the current crisis, and which is a very difficult situation for the sector. And can you tell us what measures are being envisaged by the ministry to respond? You know that I can't really speculate on what kinds of responses might be implemented. In the past, the government has made direct investments or taxation measures, and with regard, I can't really speculate. However, what the government might do. Well, I understand that you can't really speculate, but the tariffs were announced on 4 August, and here we are in October. Is there any particular effort made to respond to this tariff situation? The work would be more the responsibility of the Ministry of Natural Resources, but I can also try to provide you more information later. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Massé, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to Telesat. Is there provisions and also expectations that will also include a reduction of prices for consumers? What's the objective of the loan guarantee? Is it just simply financial and the growth of the industry itself as specific to Telesat, or is there additional strategies to reduce costs for Canadian consumers and include more competition?
I guess on the first point, I did sort of note I'm happy to provide greater details on the agreements. I think some of them are actually public at this point within sort of any bounds of consumer confidentiality. With regards to the objective of the loan, I would say it's multifold. Number one, it is, as I've mentioned, the development of a strategic capability through Telesat around their satellite constellation and the growth of a Canadian company in what is a very globally competitive sector. Number two, through things like commitments around $600 million to pre-purchase or to pre-commit, not purchase, some of the services of Telesat. We're looking to ensure that some of the regions in Canada that have the least capacity for access to the internet are able to be connected. So both of those objectives are true and being pursued through an investment in a strategic Canadian company.
Okay, and to follow up with that, is there a requirement for rural remote communities to get service first, or is it going to be left for Telesat? So we've seen current carriers often concentrate in hotspots, but since we're actually part of the funding, does Telesat have a requirement to provide a more fair, equitable distribution to connect rural and remote communities?
Well, certainly part of the objective of the Telesat as an organization is to have a polar orbit, and so that creates an opportunity for connection in areas that is often not easily connected or where most satellite constellations aren't currently taking place. Part of what I previously mentioned around sort of the set around $600 million is specifically intended to support access to low Earth orbit in the north. Also, our investments in this company, which are primarily around building a Canadian capability, are also supplemented through investments the government is making through the Universal Broadband Fund. And that fund, and through that fund, there's active investments that are being made to try and to get to the connection of 98% of Canadians by 2026 and 100% by 2030.
Thank you very much. So we'll go now to Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, officials. My Liberal colleagues seem to be confused about what ownership of a company is, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. 36% of Telesat is owned by MHR Fund Management, a New York-based investment fund. Is that right? And they're voting shares.
I believe that to be correct, yeah.
Okay. New York-based GAMCO Asset Management and Gabrielle Funds, both in New York, combined own 21%. Is that correct? It's from the SEC filings.
I would, as I was about to note, I do think their ownership structure would be public, and so if you have those in front of you, I will.
And those are voting shares. Philosophy Capital Management of California owns 4.9%, again, according to SEC filings. So that's a total of 63% of Telesat is owned by American shareholders. Just to educate my Liberal colleagues who seem to think somehow it's owned by Canadians, it's owned by Americans. I will go on to ask you some questions, if I could, about the $2.1 billion loan structure. The minister wasn't answering my question about the interest relief. This $2.1 billion loan has interest relief in the first 5 years. They don't have to pay the interest, which right now I estimate at somewhere between 9 to 10% based on 4.75% interest on top of the overnight repo rate. That's about $225 to $230 million of interest over each of those individual years of interest relief. That's $1 billion of interest relief. What goods in kind are you getting for that interest relief?
So maybe a few points on that. And again, as I've mentioned, I'm happy to sort of provide greater detail on the Telesat deal itself and to have that provided to the committee. Telesat is a Canadian headquartered company with the bulk of its jobs within Canada. The supply chain on this is also...
I wasn't asking about that. If you could stick to the loan portion and the goods in kind question.
Sure. Structure of that deal is intended that there would be an initial portion during the deployment period where there would be repayment followed by a 4.75.
Right. So, but what are the goods in kind? I've read it. I know what it is. I've outlined it for everyone who's watching. What are the goods in kind, and how are you evaluating those goods in kind are worth $225 million a year?
I'm happy to come back with some of the details. I don't know if Benoit is able to.
Okay. Can you come back to the committee with those details and table that, please?
Happy to.
And any analysis that you've done on the goods in kind. The second part of the loan is a unique feature called sculpted amortization. For those who don't know what sculpted amortization is, the loan payments are matched to the cash flow of the company, which means if the company's cash flow is declining, the payments are declining. And you know what? The company's cash flow is declining. It's been declining for 5 years. It's down to less than $100 million of free cash flow a year. So how are you going to get that $2 billion back, plus interest, when it's attached to a declining payment on declining cash flow with a company with declining revenue?
Well, obviously the...
Not with declining revenue.
So the assessment...
It's been nosediving.
Obviously, in coming to negotiating and in coming to the deal that was struck, as you've mentioned, there was analysis that was done around their potential market shares, their potential sales, and the potential for the repayment. And so the loan was structured to strike an appropriate balance of risk and reward for the government. It is our assessment and our analysis, and that has been...
Right, but they have no satellites up. They've only just contracted. They contracted once before in 2021 for a company called TAS to put up satellites for this. It never happened. Now they're going to contract again for it. You're betting that once those 198 satellites are up, they'll start to magically have revenue, which has been declining. That's going to take years to put those satellites up. I think it's going to take longer. I don't think you're going to get this money back. And I don't believe you've gotten the money back on the $1.4 billion that was loaned to them in 2021, have you?
As I said, the current loan supersedes the 2021 loan. Our assessment and in...
They compound.
our assessment and supported, we've had independent assessments done as well, is that we believe that the loan is appropriately structured for the risk being undertaken, and we believe that there's a high likelihood of full repayment.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bilodeau.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bilodeau. Mr. Arya, to conclude.
I'll go back to the steel and aluminum sector, which I referenced in the first part of my questioning. The steel and aluminum industries, we have the natural resources, we have the technology, we have the talent. However, all the companies in these two sectors are foreign-owned, and there has been no growth, zero growth in steel installed capacity during the last 20 years. The number of employees in these sectors is going down. However, when it comes to protection...
Une seconde, Monsieur Arya, il y a un appel au règlement.
I'm sorry, there's a...
Fonctionne pas. I'll just be...
It seems that the interpretation is not working.
Interpretation is working. Est-ce que ça fonctionne? Is it working, Mr. Garon?
Ça fonctionne.
Merveilleux.
Ma machine à moi vient de geler, donc je ne peux plus vérifier, mais on me dit que ça fonctionne.
I'm told that it's working. I'll answer afterwards. Thank you. Mr. Arya, over to you.
Thank you. But when it comes to protecting these industries, they are the most vocal companies. In fact, we rightly put a tariff on Chinese steel products coming into Canada, but we also put a tariff on the steel products that are not manufactured in Canada, indirectly benefiting the foreign owners of Canadian steel industry so that they can export to Canada from their manufacturing plants elsewhere in the world. And again, steel and aluminum industry companies, they only export to North America. At least for steel industry, I know very well that 90% of their exports is only to United States and Mexico. Probably the same case, almost the same case with aluminum sector. We have signed 20 trade agreements with 51 countries across the world. But these two sectors where we have inherent advantage, we are not exporting anywhere else. We talk about Indo-Pacific strategy. We need, ASEAN is a big growing market for Canadian products, but not these two sectors. Why is that we continue to protect the foreign-owned steel industries while not encouraging them to increase installed capacity, to increase employment in those sectors?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. The dynamics around the steel and aluminum industry is complex when it's a global one. And so the dynamics that the Canadian industry is facing is not, as you know, an entirely domestic creation. It's directly linked to the overcapacity and overproduction worldwide. And that, in part, is why the government has put in place tariffs.
I'm sorry. Everybody says that across the world, the Chinese are selling cheap steel, subsidized aluminum. But the foreign owners have got plants all across the world, and they're all profitable. And so the argument that the Chinese manufacturing in steel and aluminum is killing the industries worldwide is wrong. And why are we not demanding, when we are giving concessions, subsidies, and protection to domestic companies, why are we not demanding that they have to increase their installed capacity here?
I take your point on government policy. Again, I think the action to date of the government has been on tariffs within our own industries and within industries like defense, where there's significant spending. We do focus in on generally Canadian supply chain. But I take your point. It's a valid.
Okay, coming back to mines to mobility strategy, one of the key factors that not get discussed much is the demand for electricity in the coming years and decades when we move more towards the electric vehicles. Power generation, in my view, we can crank up quickly with the natural gas production and using natural gas to produce electricity. But when it comes to grid, for transmission and distribution of electricity, because the jurisdiction problems, the jurisdiction is within the provinces, I don't think investments are being made in anticipation of the increased demand for electricity. While, as I said, we can generate more electricity in a short period of time, establishing the grid that for the transmission and distribution is not taking place. Is the federal government doing something about that?
Yeah. Again, the issues of jurisdiction around electricity and the production, obviously there's the grid, there's the production. The role of our department is primarily to spur and to invest in innovation in that space. That's why we do investments in things like SMRs. With regards to the production of electricity, which as you noted is provincial jurisdiction, I will sort of leave that to both colleagues at NRCan or to the province to comment on.
But then how can we succeed in our Mines to Mobility strategy? Because if one key component is not in your jurisdiction, so what action the federal government is taking jointly with the provincial governments to address this issue?
Mr. Area, those are very interesting questions, and I appreciate the conversation. I wish we could go on for longer. However, we've reached the end of the time for this committee meeting. Thanks for your participation to all. Merci à nos témoins aujourd'hui, Monsieur Bilodeau.
Thank you to our witnesses today. Thank you very much for your interest. And the meeting is adjourned. Have a good day.